My name is Patrick Bukszar. I'm the CEO of Hurricane Builders, and I'm also the chairman of the Workforce Development Task Force for the BIA. Today I have with me Michael Diaz. Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm the building construction teacher at the Center for Advanced Technical Studies at Lexington School District 5.
Okay.
So I guess the name kind of says enough about it, building construction instructor.
Yep, and we thank you for working with our young, up-and-coming students and future workforce. Today we want to talk about exactly that, our workforce, a lot of the pain points that home builders and people in the building industry have is the lack of talented and educated workers to do all of the things that are involved in building a house. And I will just say, growing up and being in high school, I had no clue how many jobs there could be in building a house in our industry. Tell us a little bit about what you do in your classes and the things you focus on. I'm familiar with it, but tell our listeners today.
Well, it's funny you say that, not knowing how vast the umbrella is that encompasses the building industry, right? So every year I'm always seeing this influx of kids that are coming in and looking through our windows, and they see 2x4s getting cut and wood sawdust flying around everywhere. And quite naturally, when these kids come into a career center, they're coming in with the mindset of I'm hands-on activities. I'm going to get
and
to do something.
And they see power tools.
Yeah, and they love that stuff. They love seeing the power tools. So we'll get them in, and typically in my program we cover I like to say 4 main facets of construction. So we'll cover framing, we cover masonry, we cover electricity, and we'll touch on some plumbing. And while we're doing all that, we tend to cross over with fields that these kids never even knew existed. For one, I think a really good one is I had some interns just last year. Intern with CC&I. They're a building inspection group out of Spartanburg, and these kids were like, what do you mean building inspections? So they once I introduced them to the career, one of them is actually interning with CC&I to become he wants to become a CBO. So
certified building official.
Yes, the careers, they're just so vast, from the supply side to the trade side to what you do, the professional side. I think the kids don't know that those careers exist, and even more important, the parents don't know that these careers exist. Yeah. I feel like we need to do a better job at getting parent engagement and getting them to understand that our career cluster, to me, is right behind medical, with how many different types of careers exist under that umbrella of construction.
And when we talk about the building industry, that encompasses a lot of professional areas such as bankers and engineers, accountants, things like that. So there are, other aspects of it. And I think one of the things that needs to be educated, and you mentioned the parents, is that there's almost this stigma that parents have, and I've talked to many, and I was one of them who said and thought my kid's going to go to college. But over the 24 years I've been in this industry, it's kind of funny, the people that have high level degrees don't make as much money as some of the trades and the manual labor type roles that are out there. But there's just always been this stigma of, if you're not smart enough to go to college, then settle for the trades, as opposed to what we're seeing now is more exposing kids to, what do you like to do, and do you enjoy being hands-on? Like my oldest son, he would go crazy if he had to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. He wants to be moving, touching, drilling, sawing, pulling wire, whatever. And I think for a lot of kids, they don't know that there are options. So talk a little bit about what you've seen over the years with students who come in. You see their eyes opened to new things, new concepts, new ideas, new realities that maybe I will go to college, but I'll go in a different direction, or maybe I'll go to a 2-year college and get a associate's degree in something, or maybe I'll just straight out of high school, I'll go work in a trade and learn that trade and work your way up.
That's a perfect segue into something that was going into my mind here about so. And I wish I had a notepad here so that I could write some of this down so I don't forget, right? So let's talk about traditionally where my students end up. So not everyone that takes building construction envisions construction as a career. You have some that just come and the class looks fun. And they wanted to do something that's hands-on, and they heard about Mr. Diaz and his engagement with students, and it attracted them to the career field. Then I've got some that have parents that are in the construction industry, and they're usually my diamonds. Like, I know if I get a kid that has a parent, a mom or a dad that's in the industry, they're there because they can tell that when I graduate, that's where I want to find myself. And then I have kids that are undecided. And then I have a cluster of kids that know they want to go to college, don't know what they want to study, but they want to go. I have a cluster of kids that know they don't want to go to college. And those are the ones that I'd really like to focus on here in this conversation for a second. But the ones that go to college, they want to do something in construction. Their parents are kind of, hey, you need to get a degree. So I do get a lot of them that have, over the past few years, I guess I've been doing this long enough now to say, wow, I'm actually seeing kids that have went to Clemson or went to East Carolina. I have one that went to East Carolina, and they graduated, and they're actually working active in the industry.
And those are in like construction science or construction management specific majors.
Absolutely. But now they are also the kids that when they got to start studying in their discipline that are like, whoa, I'm not doing anything with my hands here. I thought it was going to be a lot different than what it is, but they're successful. And then I have some that
and I'll just butt in a little bit, but most of those young men and women that graduate with a construction science or construction management role won't be working with their hands. They're going to be in a supervisory or management role, but they will be typically in the field.
Yeah.
And they can see, like one of the things that always gave me passion for the construction industry is seeing progress on a job site and seeing things, go from the ground to a building. So there is that aspect, but you're right. Sometimes they're thinking they're going to be in a role where they can work with their hands, and then they find out I'm behind a computer 80% of the day.
Right. Then I have some that will go to, they go to a technical college, and they'll get 2 years there, and then they'll wind up doing some type of assistant project manager or assistant superintendent. And then I have some, and this is the link in the chain that I'm trying to figure out. I have some that just are adamant they don't want to go to college. They're ready to go to work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and I hate to even say this, but when they say they want to go to work, I know most of them are saying they want to be a carpenter. I love the smell of the sawdust. Love, we love nailing these 2x4s together, and we love standing them up. And you can probably attest that there's something to be said with, I'm just going to use framers as an example. When you go to a lot and there's nothing there, and a week or two later you've got this shell that's built that, wow, now I know what I can see.
Yeah.
That's probably, in my opinion, that's probably one of the biggest eye-openers to construction. You know, you went from nothing, and all of a sudden now I see it, and we
you
know
can look
that
back and say, I helped do that.
Yes, but we know that to get to that point is fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's the finishes that tend to slow down and drag on out. So in this world that we live in today, where kids are used to instant gratification, and they're used to seeing things happen quick. The framing aspect is something that they really love getting engaged in.
Yeah.
So how do I get them, a kid that says, I want to be a carpenter, or I really like doing this aspect of the trade. I don't know how to get that link in the chain.
Right.
Because there's, quite honestly, there's not a lot of residential framing that there's a lot of, let me think about how I want to phrase that, and maybe you can help me, because I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it going on. There's not a lot of opportunities for them to jump into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, and we all know that careers would be with the builders that, like you guys, that are they're not going to have to worry about sitting home because there's no work. It's house after house after house. Right.
Yeah.
So
if it's raining and you're not framing, you're not getting paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So which leads me to say, okay, you want to do that, well, you're going to have to go to the custom builders.
Mm-hmm.
But those custom builders aren't going to keep you busy like your track builders will. So there's a kink there that we need to somehow figure out how can we work that out. The other thing that I've noticed, and I just noticed this, we had the opportunity to go do a tour with 84 Lumber, and they took us out to a couple of their neighborhoods, and I was actually...
was that during the Job Shadow event?
Yeah, that's a great
84
event.
did a great job with their
fantastic
job shadowing.
Fantastic. We look forward to that every year that they offer it, but... What I've noticed, and this is with all the track builders, is that the construction has changed from when I was a kid. We're still banging 2x4s together and using circular saws and nail guns, but the way that building is done is much more, I guess you guys would call it, efficient. The technology has maybe changed the industry a little bit, but when I got back to my shop, so we're touring these track-built houses, and we get back to our lab over there, and I'm looking at all of these scaled models that we're building, and these practice modules. I'm sitting there thinking, man, these kids are overtrained.
Yeah.
Like we are severely, like, I'm missing the boat. To get them out there, these kids are learning how to cut common rafters, valley rafters, hip rafters, and they're learning how to cut wall tees and install corners.
Now they're doing California framing, where you don't have T-posts and traditional corners, and everything is truss.
Right.
So, I mean, I hate to say it, but most of the framers that are on a job site today couldn't cut a common rafter, or definitely not a valley rafter,
So
because they're just used to throwing trusses up with a crane, and like you said, it's for efficiency, but the skill set has been somewhat watered down. That's better than the term I was going to use of dumbed down, but it is there to create those efficiencies, which again, it's all about efficiency these days. So the good thing about, and not to counter your point, but to overtrain them is not a bad thing, because they're going to know other ways to do things, and then their eyes will be open to different ways to solve the same problem, which can then translate into problem solving skills down the road. But I definitely feel what you're saying about the opportunities, and especially someone coming straight out of high school. One of the things that the workforce development task force, there's so many different facets of it. There's, adult education. We meet with middle school students now to kind of expose them to some of the jobs. The high school students that you have, we're doing student chapters for the BIA. We're doing, all sorts of things, but there's apprenticeship programs that some companies sponsor. There's some state-sponsored apprenticeship and workforce programs. And what a lot of those focus on are the more technical, and we'll call it like the mechanical trades, so plumbing, electrical, HVAC. Those trades can get very technical. Like, not anyone can wire a house, like knowing circuitry and things like that gets a little more advanced. So you find a student that can come out of high school, maybe get started in framing to understand the structure of the house, and then they get involved in another phase of it, and then they learn another phase, and then they learn another phase, and next thing you know, they realize, I know how to build a house. And then maybe they become a home builder, and then before you know it, this person's making more money than they ever dreamed of. And there's a lot of builders out there. There's a lot of owners of electrical companies, plumbing companies, HVAC companies that were they got right out of high school. They started working in the trades, and then they found out what they really enjoyed doing and kind of went that way. Talk a little bit about some, and maybe even specific examples if you can think of any. Probably don't use names, but students that you have had come through your program that have had success either through going straight into work from high school, or a 2-year certificate program or degree program from a school like Tech or Trident, and then even like college.
Let me just say, some of the most successful people that I know that are my age or older happen to be college dropouts who became subcontractors. Yeah. And the next thing you know, they're building some $1 million house on the lake.
Right.
I can definitely I appreciate your acknowledging that there is a successful path with the trades. And I guess me talking about framing doesn't have to just be framing. There's
trim carpenters,
electricians,
yeah,
plumbers, and concrete guys. And forget it, those are some of the concrete finishers, or some
we won't even go
some
into
of the ones that I'm talking about,
might
right?
get in trouble.
But we have trim carpenters, and being able to get a kid out of that high school setting and say, hey, here's a trade that you can potentially become independent in and become a subcontractor. And a lot of times parents and students don't understand that being a subcontractor is very much about knowing how to run a business as it is, knowing the trade.
Right. Yeah, you can have a great concrete finisher that doesn't know how to run his business, and
right.
he goes bankrupt.
Absolutely. But if there's a way to train these aspiring contractors to, hey, we're going to show you how to run a business effectively. You're bringing the skill set for this trade. We're going to teach you how to manage employees. We're going to teach you what's involved with paying taxes, with bidding, with, the whole gamut. They can be very successful outside of pursuing a college degree. I'll tell a story about a young man that I graduated 2 years ago. He took my program, and he also paralleled my program. We touch on electricity. We do a whole semester on electricity, but then we also, at the center, we also have a class that teaches nothing but electricity. They get into more of the commercial aspect of electricity than we do. But this young man was on it. He picked up just everything he could about residential construction. He knew how to frame, he can trim, and he could wire something up like there was no tomorrow. You know,
Do you have
he
his
was
number?
just,
No, I'm just kidding.
so anyway, we actually go into a state competition, and he, he helped us bring home a gold medal.
Nice.
And they said, man, I'd never seen wiring done that pretty before. His panel was just absolutely, it was perfect.
Yeah. Took pride in his work.
Oh yes. So he said he did not want to go to college, and he just wanted to go to work. Well, and here's where you a lot of times can really put some separation in my students. All while this kid was in high school, he was working with an electrical contractor on the side. If it was weekend and he could find the work, he would go work. If it was after school and he could find the work, he would go work. And he was fortunate to find an opportunity where there was an employer in the construction industry that would work around that school schedule, because that's probably where do we lose our high school kids to? The restaurants, right? The grocery stores, because they're open.
They can work after hours. Yeah,
exactly.
After school hours.
But when I have kids that want to go do something in construction as their part-time job while they're in high school, it's almost non-existent, because they're starting early and quitting early.
Yeah,
right?
and typically don't work weekends. And,
Right. So this young man happened to network with an electrician, and all through high school. Today, 2 years after high school, he is a project manager. I forget the name of the electrical company, but he's in my cell phone. And he doesn't even pull wire anymore. He's hiring and estimating.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are definitely there for a kid that's a go-getter, and that has had, those dots have been they somehow fell into place for him. With some of the college grads, most of them that I know they're in construction, and they're on the commercial side of construction.
Yeah, pretty much if you go to Clemson or East Carolina and you're doing construction science or construction management, you're going to get swept up by a commercial or even industrial construction company. I know, the residential obviously doesn't pay as much as those jobs, so they're going to kind of take that route if they can. I've been fortunate to work with several people that graduated from Clemson and decided they wanted to be in residential, and they were some of the best superintendents and project managers that I've ever worked with. Mike, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was the younger generation. At one time they were calling them the microwave generation, but it's probably like Instagram generation or something now. It's funny, I've talked to so many number of students about jobs in the construction industry, and they see me as a CEO. I've been division president. I've done a lot of different things. This is my 24th year in the industry, and I haven't always been at the top. There was a lot of sloshing around in the trenches and muddy boots and covered in sawdust and things like that. And but they'll say, like, yeah, I want to do what you do. And I say, well, put on your boots, and maybe 20 years later you can earn that. So talk a little bit about, do you see that with your students? Like they want to go straight into management. They want to be in the corner office and stuff like that right off the bat. Is that a problem, or do you see that as an issue with students, or is that not really that pervasive?
Well, Patrick, I thought you were 34, so to say that you've been doing this for 24 years.
I started when I was 10.
But no, I guess we can flip that a little bit and talk about money.
Yeah.
Right. So, and
I think that's probably what they really want. They don't want the corner office. They want, I want to make how much money you make.
It's kids that are. It's not necessarily the I want the responsibility.
Yeah.
As much as I want more money.
Yeah.
So what you'll find that I believe the industry is going to battle here before long. I think we're going to see more battles is other industries that are a big draw for some of these kids.
Yeah, we're competing with higher paying industries.
Yeah, and it's it's shocking what some of the grocery stores are paying. It's shocking what some of the restaurants are paying. And one of my interns, it's funny, he works with one of the big restaurants in town, and he said my parents didn't want me to go there because they said once you start in the restaurant industry, you get roped in. And so when he was talking about some of his, his paychecks, especially now gearing up towards the holiday season, my other interns are like, "What? Where are you working at?" So when you compare that to some of the entry level salaries or hourly rates in the construction industry, and you compare that with, okay, I may be making $1 less or even pay. Maybe it's paralleled, but I'm going to be out there in 100-degree weather. I'm going to be it's physically taxing on some of these entry level positions. That's another little bit of a hurdle to get over when you're trying to attract youth into the industry. If a kid knows he wants to do it, I know I want to be in construction. Then usually the money's not going to be a big factor. But if you're dealing with a kid that doesn't know, like very much like I was, when I graduated, I didn't really have this target of, I know this is what I want to do. We have a lot of kids that are graduating that construction is in the radar, but it's not a guarantee that I want to end up there. Is there anything else out there that may be better? So how do we have to do a better job at convincing them, hey, this is where you want to be, and these are the reasons why. I guess with parents, and I kind of see that shifting a little bit. 15 years ago when I first started, getting into the construction industry may have been kind of a taboo thing for a parent. I guess a lot of them remember, 2008 and when times were hard. But it's shifting where I'm seeing some parents now actually have a respect for the industry. They see that today's plumber was yesterday's doctor, right? The rates. Yeah. And, but one of the things that I always used to say with, what are the things as a parent, you're a parent, what are the things that you're concerned of with your child entering into a career? Well, you want to know that they're going to be taken care of, and by that, you want to know that there's opportunity there for them to maintain a good retirement program with whoever they're working for, health insurance, time off. Those are things we need to start making these careers look a little bit more like a career than just a job.
Right. That's one thing that I think traditionally construction companies, or we'll focus on home builders, did not offer 401ks or paid vacation or things like that because they just didn't have to. That was kind of a traditional type of thing. You get paid, and we might give you a bonus on the houses that you complete and maybe a vehicle allowance, but that was about it. Things started changing in the early 2000s, especially with a lot of the national builders coming in, changing that landscape, and now almost every builder you talk to is offering some sort of fringe benefit package that comes along with the salary and the vehicle allowances and tool allowances and things like that. So it gives a little bit more security to that employee, and it's more of a career. I think what is trailing is probably some of the trades, because it's mom and pop shops or individuals, self-employed individuals. They can't offer those types of benefit packages. And we're seeing a lot of the trades getting bought up by bigger national trade type companies and kind of enveloping these small mom and pop shops. And then when that happens, then more benefits are, offered. One of the things when we talk about, stigma, like the parents don't want their kids to be in the trades or whatever. Think about when the power goes out or when the water goes out or, your air conditioning's out. Oh, yeah. How much money would you pay to get your power back on or get your air conditioning fixed or your toilet to where it's flushing again?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of value in, especially the mechanical trades, that that people don't think about until they need that trade, and then they're willing to pay them whatever it needs to get that job done.
You know, when you say mechanical trades, so my students that know that they want to go, we're going to do construction, we're going to graduate, we're going to do something in the construction industry. I'm always pushing them towards those HVAC technicians, or and I like saying HVAC even over, you know, electrical or plumbing, because let's face it, we're in South Carolina when it's 100 degrees outside and your AC quits working. The first thing you're going to do is pick up a phone. You know, I was going to say Yellow Pages, so how old I am, but you're looking for somebody to come fix that.
Right.
So you know, I think with the mechanical trades, they're in a little bit better of a position to keep furnishing those employees. It's the skilled trades that I'm a little bit, you know, I'm just a little concerned on how can we fill those skilled trades gaps. And I'd love to ask you, you know, as a big builder, are you guys seeing any? Is the demand for the skilled trades there?
Definitely.
Is it evident? It is.
Yeah, and, you know, Columbia's a growing market, and when I started in this industry, it was 2001, and there might have been 2 or 3 national builders, and then everything else was local builders. Columbia, I don't know what the permit number was back then, but it's probably quadrupled since then. So the growth, and so the number of trades that are out there is multiplied, and then that means the number of employees that they have to fill all their positions. But you look at a typical production or tract neighborhood that has several hundred houses in it, you might look down the street and see 20 vans from one electrical contractor or plumbing contractor in one neighborhood, and that's one of 20 or 30 neighborhoods that are being built in Columbia at that time. So there's definitely this demand for workers in those skilled trade fields. That's one thing that, you know, as the Workforce Development Task Force is trying to connect all the dots and bring students coming out of high school together with trades that are looking for, you know, fresh talent and new talent. And, you know, a lot of people are retiring. They've got to replace those people. You know, some of the things that we do, job shadowing, you mentioned earlier, we try to connect high school students with some of these different companies, because maybe a high school student thinks they want to do something like be an electrician or a framer or a draftsman or something like that, and then they spend a day shadowing that, and they realize, oh, that is not at all what I want to do for the rest of my life, or even for the next 5 years. Or they might say, yes, that is awesome, totally what I want to do, and then we help them, you know, move forward on that track. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit, though. One thing that we were talking about offline was the female aspect of the industry. So when you have students come in to the Kate Center and they're looking at all the different aspects and kind of doing like a tour of what they can do, traditionally, you know, maybe the females are slanted towards one career track and the males towards the other. I will say I have seen and hired several female superintendent project managers, and actually I would say the one that is working for me now is probably our best superintendent by far. I've never had, and like we get bank inspections, I've never had a bank inspector call me and tell me how nice a roughed-in house looked, like how clean it was and how, you know, perfect everything looked. And actually had that happen a couple months ago, and, you know, gave her kudos for that. But it's definitely shifting to where I would have never seen a female superintendent, or even like I've seen female framers, I've seen female electricians, things like that. Tell me are you seeing that at all in the high school or at the Kate Center where maybe they're choosing the building construction track over, say, nursing or something like that?
Well, I'll still call them my non-traditionals. So,
Yeah.
In a class of 16, I may have two or three. But 10 years ago, I had
It
none.
would be zero,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, and the two or three that I do get, are genuinely, like, I feel if I have a non-traditional, if I have a female come in, I usually know that they're pretty serious about building construction is in their radar.
Yeah.
And generally, to complement what you're saying, one of your best superintendents being a female, oftentimes I get the best product when I team up one of my females with one of my top males together. They're on point.
Yeah.
So they're really good at attention to detail. They like keeping their, the site remains clean. They are, and I say they complement each other. So I'm in my mind, I'm envisioning, my top tier students, my top performing students. If I form a team with one of the females and one of the males, they usually deliver a product that is, it's A quality.
Yeah.
So I am seeing every year it grows a little bit more. It started out with one, and what I am finding though is, and this is interesting. A lot of times I'll have one, that you start the year and you're looking at your roster and you're reading out your names, and I had one female, and I said, okay, one, but I have 15 boys. And I used to think that immediately that was going to scare them away.
Right.
And, they'd be like, okay, they're going to sit
I'm the only one.
they're going to sit in here for the first class or two and realize that there's no other girls coming in. I'm out of here. But they stick with it. And I think that's probably been maybe a catalyst to now having two or three.
Multiple,
yeah. That's why I say when a non-traditional, when a female student enters into my classroom, it's because they know that that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah. Kind of breaking the stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And by all means, I would love, I would invite your superintendent to come in, and I know we're talking about job shadows, but we also love to invite industry to come into our classroom and talk to some of these students about, the opportunities that are out there. So and I'd love to have a non-traditional, a female superintendent to come in there and talk with both my female and male students. We also, some of them participated in NAWIC, is that National Association?
Women in Construction.
Yeah. And they loved participating in that. So, no, I think it's great. I really do. I think it's great just to see the industry shift and invite a non-traditional workforce to get things done. So, Patrick, I'd like to just see if maybe there's a way that you can address or just in maybe expand my mindset. If I have a kid that comes in and let's say during an open house, they come in with their mom or their dad and they're talking about Sam, Susie, John, whatever, his parent tells me that they really have, this is what he wants to do. He wants to go into construction. What's your advice? He doesn't, they don't necessarily want to go to college. They want to go straight into the workforce. So a lot of, immediately to touch back on things that we talked about, retirement, 401ks, health insurance, time off, sick leave, whatever. I usually, my mind is, I got to send this kid down the commercial route.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of you commercial guys are offering these little fringe benefits to their employees that are actually tradesmen out there in the field. And that may not be what the kid wants to do. The framing commercially is very different than framing residential.
Right.
Trim carpenters are very different in a commercial setting than they are in a residential setting. So there is this line of, and you find it's very true with subs. Your commercial subs usually don't cross over and come back into residential. They're commercial subs.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of kids that may want to go into residential building, but
you can also finish your job a lot quicker.
Yes.
Like if you're doing commercial and you're wiring, you might be wiring a Walmart that takes a month, and you're wiring a house that takes a day and a half.
Right.
So kind of cycle time and things like that.
The opportunity to get him in there. So tell me a little bit more, because that's interesting. That kind of gives me a little bit of hope, maybe. You said that you're seeing bigger trade groups maybe forming and actually hiring. So tell me what you mean by that.
So if you think of like some of the companies that have been acquired lately would be some of our after paint trades. So shelving, mirrors, hardware, gutters, garage doors, things like that. So as the house is finishing up, these finish aspects, there's been these mom and pop shops around town that, might be one owner, his wife is running the office, and there's maybe a payables, receivables clerk, and then they have 15 field staff out installing their items. These smaller groups, they can't offer benefits, paid time off, things like that. This is one guy running a small little company. I wouldn't want my son to go work for them, because I want my son to have vacation and retirement and all this medical insurance, all those kind of things. A lot of these smaller groups, just like home builders, there's not many local home builders left in Columbia. Most of them have been bought up by national and regional home builders. When that type of transition happens, they're usually coming in, and these are national, sometimes even global companies that offer, first year, 15 days of PTO, 401k after 90 days, we're going to match 3%, Aflac, or, some sort of supplemental insurance, full medical insurance, dental, vision, all the things that you would think of in a professional career are being offered to installers and technicians and laborers. So some of the insecurity that has been associated with the construction industry or the trades, or whatever you want to classify it as, that's kind of going away in the new world that we're in terms of corporate culture. You hear corporate, and then a lot of times that's got kind of a bad connotation to it. To me, it's a positive connotation, because you're kind of getting things to the next level, higher level of employee benefits. And, most corporations think about employee betterment, like how are we going to train them to go to the next level? How are we going to, safety culture is a big thing in the bigger companies. So where, one accident could possibly put a company out of business, they focus on safety, which makes me feel good if my son's going to work for a company and they're big on safety, if he's welding or if he's framing or things like that. So it's really just, it's not our mom and pops, or it's not our dad's construction industry that we knew, years ago.
And it's funny you're saying that. You're talking about some changes. So one of the things that we did this year, which this is the first time it's happened to me, and it's actually pretty exciting, is we have a class at the center called cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. So cybersecurity, they touch on they're doing networking, and so now a lot of these builders are doing what's called a smart home.
Yeah.
So I actually have a cybersecurity kid that was super interested in construction. So he's taking cybersecurity and building construction. So we're trying to see if there's somehow that we can collaborate between the two programs and see if we can get this kid knowing all the mechanics that go into building a house, and then letting him insert his cybersecurity knowledge into what's now the new smart home.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing anything with smart home technology?
Yeah, so a lot of, and that was kind of around 2010, 2012. All the smart home stuff started coming out with Z-Wave, and then shifted to Wi-Fi, and so smart door locks, smart lighting, security, all different types of automation, and most builders are doing some sort of technology, and that's a whole nother realm that you can get into. So they can come in and pre-wire a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff is wireless, but trying to get it all to work together frustrates me, and I would pay someone a lot of money to come in and do that for me, because I have a smart home, but I'm not that smart when it comes to things like that. So having someone that knows how to do that, hook it all up, and then make Alexa work with my front door lock and my lights and stuff like that. So there's even we call them smart home technicians. They come in, they hook all that up after the buyer moves in and connect it to the internet and do all those types of things. And so there's just so many aspects and different realms of areas we can go and lead students to that. If they love tech, and most builders run their own software programs. They have their own IT manager. They have all their information stored in the cloud. Most superintendents are walking around with an iPad or a Microsoft Surface, and they're doing their scheduling online. They have a portal for their vendors, with the purchase orders and the specifications and things like that. So the technology is out there, and all of that has to be run by someone. So there's, you can work for a builder as an IT manager. So cybersecurity degrees, things like that can work in the construction industry. There's almost, other than medical, I can't think of a degree that wouldn't be somehow applied. Like, we use lawyers, we use engineers, we use, all the professional degrees out there. So you can go from, some builders might have people with master's degrees, maybe even PhDs, probably not, but, so high school, and you can be a high school dropout all the way up to a PhD and work in the building industry. Michael, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, and we talked about all sorts of things here today, and just want to thank you again for spending your time here, and our audience for listening.
Patrick, I thank you for having me, and I thank you for taking the time to think about how you can invest into these kids for tomorrow's future. So
Absolutely.
I just thank you.
Yep, thank you.